Luistertoets Engels Havo 1990, onderdeel A. U gaat luisteren naar een gesprek met de heer Griffith, die werkzaam is in de dierentuin van Londen. Het gesprek vond daar ook plaats, tegen een achtergrond van dierengeluiden, met name tegen het eind van het interview. De pelikanen beginnen dan honger te krijgen en laten dat weten. Meneer Griffith vertelt nu ter inleiding eerst iets over zijn werk op de afdeling voorlichting. Hierbij is geen opgave.
My job is to provide information for members of the public. We feel very often that in the past they like to come to the zoo and just look at the animals, but more and more, because they've gained information from the television set, they want to come to the zoo and know more about the animals in the wild, or something about their conservation or how they feed. And it's my job to provide that information in an attractive way.
Example.
De toets begint nu.
People's ideas about zoos have changed in the course of time. Has this affected London Zoo at all?
Because it's been established for well over 150 years, because it's a city zoo and therefore has to abide by certain regulations in terms of planning and building, it's not been able to change as quickly as many of the people that work in the zoo would have liked. We were very much aware of the demand by members of the public for safari parks, for more open presentation of the animals. But this is less possible in a city zoo, which only has a small amount of space, than it would be out in the country. And while plans have been drawn up, it is going to take us some time to get there.
1.
Do you think safari parks are an improvement on zoos?
The public's demand is for safari parks. Very often, the animals in safari parks need more, they need confined areas where they can be kept warm, be given their needs. In safari parks during the summer, when many people see them, the animals look fine. But often in the winter, they need just the facilities which we can provide them with here. So really we need a compromise. We've got to be able to treat them often in small areas, to get close to them. At the same time, they need large open enclosures at another time. And very few zoos have actually managed to get the right compromise so far.
2.
How does your collection of animals compare with other zoos?
It is a very large collection indeed. It used to be a bit like a stamp collection, and we're certainly going away from that policy. But it's still very large. We have about, they say 8,000 specimens. I think really that's still on the high side because it's coming down all the time. And we're trying to keep animals more and more in breeding groups. And in groups that represent the sort of societies in which they would live in the wild. And that takes more space, and it means you can only keep fewer species.
3.
What about the entertainment aspect of zoos? Would you say it is less important than the educational aspect?
I don't think you can separate the two, because the most important job that zoos can do in a way for conservation is education. But people will not come to the zoo if you're not also entertaining. And if they don't come, you're not educating them. I think education should be entertaining if it's going to work well. So we can't separate the two. We've got to be a place of entertainment as well, but I'd hate us to be aiming for entertainment without our major aims of the people that work here being conservation and the interests of the animals.
4.
Are zoos important from a scientific point of view? What about London Zoo in this respect?
It's one of the most important zoos in the world from a scientific point of view, I think. We do a lot of research here into aspects of reproduction, particularly with the primates, and this obviously has got some interest for medical research as well, but I would hope that it's primarily for the interest of the animals. We do a certain amount of research on feeding, on nutrition, and other aspects of animal welfare, looking into the differences in their blood cells and so on.
5.
What do you consider London Zoo's greatest achievement?
I think it's the breeding of rare animals. Przewalski's horse is one that we've just been... There are less than 500 specimens, we believe, in the world. They are probably extinct in the wild, so they're all in captivity. The danger then is that you will mate closely related animals. We have inbreeding, and to prevent that, the animals are bred carefully. But also we think that by transferring an embryo at an early stage to a close relative of the Przewalski horse, another pony, we can breed them more rapidly.
6.
Do you exchange animals with other zoos at all?
Yes, this is very important between zoos now. At one time, zoos saw themselves as being in competition, and they always wanted to have the biggest, the rarest, the most unusual. These days, I think they understand that we're all part of the same program, and we are involved with some zoos almost at every level in our planning, both of breeding and the way we keep our animals, with other zoos, just because we exchange them when the opportunity arises.
7.
Would you say that being kept in a zoo affects the animal's health?
Well, these days, if you go to the hospital now, I sometimes take groups around the hospital, and often you find that there isn't an animal in there which is sick or injured. So at one time, yes, perhaps it was true to say that bits came off the cages and the animals would eat them. These days, you can go round, and the only animals in there have been brought in for observation. I won't say to keep the vets busy, but so that they learn more about them and we can treat them better in the future. Preventative medicine, the vets would say, is our policy, rather than trying to cure them once they're ill.
8.
What do you think of the attitude of third world countries to conservation?
I think often their dilemmas are greater than ours, and we have greater responsibilities there. If we think of the problems in Uganda, they had some of the best game parks that we could imagine, and some very rare species within them, and they were looked after reasonably well. But of course then, with all the problems that Uganda had, when people are starving, I don't think we can necessarily expect them to look after their exotic species. What we must therefore try to do is to ensure that these disasters don't happen, and only when that occurs can we really expect people to look after their wildlife.
9.
You do have the Animal Liberation Front in Britain, don't you? Have you come in for any criticism from them?
The zoo has been daubed with slogans, yes, and we also have what's called a sit-in. I don't think they'd have just grievances, but there are some people that don't believe you should ever kill an animal. And in a zoo, if you breed animals, then from time to time you are going to have to cull some of them. You either are going to just allow things to happen, or you're going to have to farm and work out a program. And some people object even to that. Some people object to any experimentation. I believe that if we don't have zoos, the future for animals is not particularly good, because we cannot guarantee the wild.
10.
Are the programs you draw up for your animals always successful?
No, we have problems with our pandas. That's the most well-known failure. But there are others too. But we also have some notable successes, I beg your pardon. The one that I would draw attention to particularly, I suppose, is the cheetah at Whipsnade at our other zoo, where we've bred over 100. And from a wide range of animals, so there isn't a particular danger of inbreeding. We've bred through several generations. Now that was an animal that had been kept in captivity for, 2,000 or 3,000 years, with very little success in breeding it.
11.